The African heads of state and government converge in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia this week for the 50th African Union Summit, but the Kenyan government wants the African leaders to place the issue of restoration of peace and stability in Somalia top on the summit's agenda. President Kenyatta and his deputy Ruto have been lobbying the continent's top leadership to set a timeline for the repatriation of millions of Somali refugees and establish mechanisms of mobilizing resources for the country that has been in turmoil for over 2 decades since the fall of Siad Barre in 1991.
And for over 20 years, it is us in the region, us in Kenya, who've borne the brunt of the crisis in Somalia. It is us who have been hosts to hundreds of thousands of refugees in our country, bearing that burden.
Part of Ruto's mission in Congo-Brazzaville, Nigeria, Ghana and Gabon has been to argue the case for the removal of refugees from Kenyan soil, stronger civilian control of Somali affairs, and recognition of the region's role in stabilizing Somalia. President Kenyatta had also lobbied South African President Jacob Zuma during their meeting at the sidelines of the World Economic Forum 12 days ago. The Kenyan government says its resources have been stretched by hosting over 1 million refugees, a bulk of whom are at the Dadaab refugee camp. The Kenyan government has also been losing billions of shillings through unpaid taxes as a result of the contraband goods finding their way into the country through the port of Kismayu. Stabilizing Somalia, according to President Kenyatta, is a Kenyan and regional initiative that should be supported by the continent.
What was the game changer in all of this? The game changer was the day Kenya decided, right, together with her regional partners, that we've had enough and we are going to take care of this ourselves. And with our own resources, with our own soldiers, our own blood, we decided we were going to go into Somalia and bring control. And that's precisely what's happened.
Western governments have shown renewed interest in Somalia since the Kenyan Defense Forces and allied troops took Kismayu last year. Initially, there was pessimism when 5,000 Kenyan soldiers, together with their colleagues from other African nations through AMISOM, ventured into Somalia to flush out the Al-Shabaab. Western nations were reluctant to commit funds and troops to the Somali operation, leaving African governments to foot the bill. But there is a change of heart after the AMISOM troops managed to pacify the war-torn nation. But African leaders are now insisting that the region must oversee the process of stabilizing Somalia. And those now scrambling to control the country must fund the stabilization process, including repatriation of refugees.
We all want support for Somalia, but never forget, right, that us in the region must take control and must lead in that direction. Because ultimately, if that's not the case, then it is going to be plain and obvious to everybody that the reason they're now moving into Somalia is because they're seeing the potential of stability, and their agenda is nothing more than a scramble for the resources of Somalia now that there seems to be some direction, but was never really the interest of the Somali people. Peace in the region, stability in the region, security in the region.
The Kenyan government is also lobbying African Union member states to support the expansion of AMISOM's mandate, to include assisting the federal government of President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud to establish a civilian government in the larger Somalia and rebuild the nation. President Kenyatta is expected to travel to Addis Ababa on Thursday for the AU Heads of State and Government Summit that will be held on Friday and Saturday. The summit is also expected to discuss the Union's position on the International Criminal Court and strengthening the African Court of Justice. Francis Gashore, Citizen Live at 9.